for being here with us, for the participation of this interactive webinar and cooperation on and innovation on climate resilient river basins. My name is Luzette Kroon. I'm board member for international affairs of the Dutch Water Authorities, and I'm hosting today's webinar as part of our community of practice of Water-Smart River Basins, which is my position actually as co-chair in this Water Europe webinar. The community of practice was established last year to create an interactive space for different water sector users to collaborate, to share knowledge, and to develop innovative solutions, and to identify also key challenges in order to move towards a water-smart society. This webinar is structured exactly for this purpose. We will first have two experts from the field to talk about their experiences on climate resilient river basins. And these two valuable presentations, after this presentation, we will ask you all some interactive questions through Mentimeter. Then we will open the floor for any lingering questions and provide certain topics for discussion. The aim of this discussion is to hear your thoughts on the challenges and solutions of moving towards climate resilient river basins. And based on your input, the community of practice, this COP, will draft a white paper which reflects the position of Water Europe on this topic. The white paper will, of course, then be circulated to stakeholders and used in the advocacy towards the European institutions. So I hope you have now somewhat insight from where we are now and where we will be, hopefully, after this session and producing this white paper. The recent developments in the EU on water resilience and climate adaptation. Across Europe, we have a climate resilient river basin management are becoming increasingly important as climate change intensifies, both floods and droughts. Many European river basins are already experiencing more variable rainfalls, longer dry periods, and more extreme flooding events. I think we all know the practices on this part. These pressures affect water supply, they affect agriculture, they affect our ecosystems, they affect our infrastructure, and though making it necessary to rethink how water resources are managed across entire catchments. This pressure also pushes water high on the agenda in the European Union. As I say, from source to sea, we all experience difficulties on water system, on water quality and water quantity. So it is very necessary that we make agreements. We notice that recent developments at EU level place stronger emphasis on water resilience as a policy objective, strengthening its focus on river basin management. The water resilience strategy has been an important step in addressing the need and creating the direction to tackle risks regarding water quality and quantity in our river basins. And at the end of 2026, the European Commission will publish its proposal for a climate adaptation package. And the objective of this package is to establish a more ambitious, comprehensive and coherent EU approach to climate resilience and preparedness, covering individual member states and the EU as a whole. As the majority of climate risks in Europe are linked to either too much or too little water, water will be an important piece of this package. In light of these developments, it is important to share knowledge and experience on river basin management in order to know what is needed to become water resilient. And we hope that this webinar will also contribute to this discussion. Saying this, I now give the floor to Andrea, to introduce Water Europe's work in river basin net management. So, Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. As I said, I mean, it's a great pleasure to be able to support, I mean, the organization of this webinar, because I mean, it's well, I mean, let's say across Europe, I mean, as you said, I mean, river basins are facing growing pressures. And these pressures, I mean, are linked to climate change, water scarcity, drought, floods, pollution. I mean, whatever we know. I mean, and at large, I mean, the ecosystem degradation, and once again, something that we are not used to before. I mean, competing water users, because this is also to be taken into account. Water Europe. Well, Water Europe is the European Water Technology Platform. We gather more than 300 members covering the full value chain of the water sector, from the multinational organizations up to the civil society organizations. And our main interest is supporting and fostering the cooperation and the collaboration, increasing the performance of the operators in the water sector across Europe and beyond Europe. It's a member-based organization. It's based on the value which considered important for our society, which is the value of water. And this is our efforts are addressed, I mean, to achieve what we call a water-smart society and economy. Which might remind also the matter that the European Commission published in June 2025, the Water Resilience Strategy, which is becoming nowadays, I mean, the main driver for addressing the water challenges at any level. Now, the point is that most of the time, many times, we're speaking about the matter that we need, I mean, to work on technologies, to apply technologies, which is true. That at large, we need, I mean, to work on innovation, and what Water Europe intends to do, and what Water Europe fosters, I mean, by supporting the water stakeholders in working in a wide collaboration matrix. But at the same time, innovation is not only technological, it's also organizational, it's financial, it touches regulatory topics, and of course, it is also social. So we need, I mean, to find, I mean, the good balance between technological and non-technological innovation. But at the same time, the water sector really requires now, I mean, to push on achieving new systems, I mean, that allow digitalization, monitoring system, predictive tools, utilization of artificial intelligence, and data spaces. And of course, as we said, nature-based solutions are important in order to approach circular methodologies and new governance model that are becoming important to enable, I mean, more adaptive and resilient river basin management. At Water Europe, we promote the transition towards, I mean, the water-smart society and economy. And within this vision, the water-smart river basin community of practice plays an important central role, because I mean, we can highlight, as I mean, the experience of territorial systems can be able, I mean, to bring, I mean, good examples, good practices. And this can also support, I mean, the implementation of the water resilience strategy, and let's say support also the broader discussion in the Europe long-term resilience and competitiveness. So I think that this webinar today, it is particularly timely, because it really provides the opportunity for exchanging experience between different expertise, cooperation models, and discuss really how innovation can really support climate adaptation and resilience at the river basin scale. So having said that, I would like really to hand over once again the floor to you, Zach, with many thanks to the speakers and the moderator that will guide, I mean, today's session. So thank you once again, thank you so much, and for all the audience, enjoy the event.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. I think we'll move on to hear from our three experts in the field of river basin management in Europe, in Africa, and in Asia. First of all, I would wish a warm welcome to the first speaker, Kimo Slager. Kimo Slager is a flood risk expert at Deltares. Deltares is, maybe most of you already know, but is an independent knowledge institute which specializes on innovative solutions for water and the underground. And Kimo is the program manager for the international project G-Car at Trace. He will explain all about this. This collaborative research program aims to improve flood and drought management in cross-border river basins. Thank you for being here, Kimo, and for telling us something about this project and your experiences. And I would like to give the floor to you, Kimo. Are you present? Yes, you already started your screen. Kimo, the floor is yours.
And then I need to be sure that I can be heard. Thank you, Lucette and Andrea, for introducing me and for having me. It's a pleasure to tell a little bit about the program which I'm managing. Indeed, I'm Kimo Slager from indeed Deltares Knowledge Institute in the Netherlands, but I'm going to talk about an initiative which is J-Car Trace, which is actually a coalition of different knowledge institutes. I was asked by colleagues to talk about transboundary cooperation for Water-Smart River Basins. And we think that knowledge is a very important driver of this cooperation. And we see that develop not only sharing knowledge, but also being able to develop joint knowledge over the full river basin really deepens cooperation and also helps in implementation. J-Car Trace, I'm not going to say what it exactly means, but it is a joint cooperation program for applied research. And we are working in the field of drought and risk management in specifically transnational regional river basins. And why in the regional river basins, I will come to that in a minute. On the right top side, you see our partners, but actually this list has grown to 30 or 40 partners already. And these are institutes, these are universities in the different countries, in the different river basins where we do research. Let me see the next slide. Yes. So why J-Car Trace? J-Car Trace has been formed after the Central Europe floods in 2021. Where in different evaluations in the different countries, in Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, there was a recommendation to not only focus on the large transnational river basins, what we usually do, the Rhine and the Meuse in this case in Central and Western Europe, but we focus on the tributaries of these, because actually the extreme flood happened in these transnational river basins, e.g. the Aar Valley in Germany, the Vesdre in Belgium, and the Gul in the Netherlands. And not only focus on these smaller rivers, but also on the transnational way, because we found out together with the governments, with the stakeholders, that this border between the different countries, between the different organizations are very hard. So they are very present, and that is what we could not afford ourselves, because we see many weather extremes happening more and more. If you look in Europe, but also further in the world, droughts, heat waves, etc. We see them happening more and more, and unfortunately, we have to also to conclude that we are not very well prepared for these very extreme ones. And what is also very worrying, and that is what we as researchers say, we do also not very well understand these phenomena very well. remember the Valencia floods in 2024, or in France. Also, these every year these extremes are happening, and I see the headlines in the paper. We were not we did not expect it that it could be so heavy. Together, we also see that there are a lot of efforts to become better prepared and adaptation, but what we see is that it will require a lot of time from history, but also for the future. And this small image on the right side shows that despite all the good intentions and all the work, it's a large problem we have to solve together. And the famous big projects we have and programs we have in the Netherlands take simply tens of years, decades. And that means that we, if you then compare that to how quickly climate is changing, this is worrisome. And that's why we need to accelerate, we feel, and with joint knowledge development, we can accelerate and deepen this cooperation, we think. The objective of this program, which is basically a program financed by the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands, spans a 5-year track with around 10 million euros of money to work. So it's a substantial project. We are really working on a couple of problems. We are working a lot on the diagnosis of on extreme floods and droughts, and also the interactions between them. But we, next to the diagnosis, we really look into whether we can find measures which are beneficial, which are technically feasible, and which are maybe possible for mitigating these events. We do that focus on a regional transnational river basin, and although we have now a subsidy for 5 years, we are already aiming for a longer term cooperation, because as I already mentioned, adaptation to climate change requires a much longer period than these 4 or 5 years of projects. So we are really aiming for a long-term cooperation in also in terms of decades. We focus on the different aspects which are also covered in the IPCC, and also we focus on different levels of measures. So in the flood risk, the traditional protection, prevention, emergency and recovery, but also the for drought management, we are looking into that, and as well as awareness. How do we do this? Now, we have basically 2 main tracks, and I have to say that in parallel to this JCAR Trace consortium, which has basically 40-50 researchers working continuously on the subjects, we have a parallel track where we have a very intense communication with the different governments at the different and stakeholders at the different borders. And that is, I think, the power that we have commitment from the different governments, and we are really developing knowledge together. And it depended on which areas we are looking to. We are looking at the whole border regions of the Netherlands and actually the Benelux, so also including Belgium and Luxembourg, and we work together with the Germans and the French. And we have 2 main tracks, namely annually programmed activities and what we call rapid assessment studies. These are these takes a couple of months to come to a conclusion, and we have a long-term track where we have PhD researchers which have applied research subjects. And what we do is, of course, we produce reports and we produce papers and we have a lot of communication in the scientific world, but which is much more important is that we have defined the research questions together with the regional and local governments who need that. So we see, and if you read our papers, it is really connected to questions which play on the local and regional level. And we, because we are doing this research, we can bring these people together in one room and discuss on something which is there on the table, really on the content. So it is not about, oh, we need to work together, cooperate more together. No, it's also really about content. And we do that with bilateral international workshops, bilateral meetings, training, symposia. I think more than half of our budget is going into that, and really this outreach and this communication, and the other half is going into research. And what we are very fond of is that in some places there are already existing living cross-border platforms, and that is where we can connect to. You should, of course, not start something new which is already existing, so we really can work on that. But in many cases, in these transnational regional river basins, these platforms do not exist yet. And there we are really building up, trying to build such platforms, which is very context specific, governance specific, people specific. I think that we are organized in a way in the Netherlands with a certain water authorities which play a very important role with municipalities and provinces and the national government. If we go to Germany, it is a complete different story, and you have to be able to connect and also really know who needs to speak with whom. So which person needs to speak, and it is simply always puzzling on how to arrange that. Some highlights, just to give some examples. We had a very interesting meeting, I believe, last month in February, or a couple of months ago again already in Aachen, where our project partner RWTH Aachen has provided a workshop for 2 days, where all these different governments which are playing around in this, or which are having a stake in these regional governments, came together and discussed how do we actually work with climate change scenarios, which are provided by IPCC and which are translated in each country in a different way, and not only translated but also treated in their policy making. And it was very interesting to see, if you compare how Germany, or within Germany, with the Netherlands, with Belgium and Luxembourg, how these actually are valued in a different way, and also what does it mean for your implementation? Do we include climate change predictions, or do we say, it is too uncertain, we do not do it? And only already really listening to each other, discussing what it means to have different approaches is already very useful, and we will follow up on that. A second one, which we are really proud of, is what we do transnational flood hazard modeling. We are in a very intense process between Germans and the Netherlands in the middle part of the Netherlands. I know Ms. Kroon is really from the northern part of the Netherlands in Friesland, but we are working together with Gelderland and Overijssel, and in Germany with Niedersachsen and Noord-Rijn-Westfalen, to have really a synergized flood hazard map, and not putting just maps from both sides of the country together, but we really try to make one instrument where we can also see and understand each other's risks, and also why it is sometimes so difficult to help mitigate the floods which happen, or which come from upstream and go to downstream. So really to make these insights and discuss these insights. We call that stress tests. Stress tests are really used for very extreme situations, and we are developing these to be able, in cases like 2021, that we have these scenarios in our in the hands of the crisis managers, and that they can really prepare for that. A third example is actually something we do with the Flemish colleagues, which is called, in Dutch, resilient water land. And here we are really trying to adopt the approach in Belgium, in Flanders, and see if we can use the same methodology and also the same approach from bottom-up cooperation with farmers and with nature conservationists and stakeholders really in the field, if we really can try to bring them together in a transnational way and really discuss what could be our targets related to droughts and floods. And I think very special that we really working together here to understand each other's language, also each other's policy language, and also developing joint action plans with investments from Netherlands in Belgium, and in Belgium into the Netherlands. So I think that is a really good step. Last example is a very recent example. We also organize more international conferences or workshop, and I think a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we had finished a multi-day workshop on flood recovery across Europe. And what we find that is herstel. So we know that in some areas, unfortunately, floods and droughts will remain happening. But we see in European policy, but also national policy and regional policy, very little attention to real recovery. And what we try to do is bringing together regions which have experienced extreme floods recently, so Valencia, France, Belgium, Germany, and really discuss what happens when you have to recover from a flood. And I think we have listed a very long list of recommendations to European level, but also the national and regional level, which you could simply not think of to prepare for when you have to recover. And I think, we want to work on this topic further. I think this was my presentation, and I hope it was within time. Lisette.
I gave you some more time because it's very interesting to learn from you, Kimo, the research you are proceeding. I used to be a mayor before I came chair of the Water Authority of Friesland, which is really the very northern part of the Netherlands, because we have the 4 isles in the Waddenzee. But what you stated about, of course, we have preparation. You start with prevention, and then you have to prepare. And we have the 3 layers of, let's say, resilience. But also there is a layer what happens afterwards. And I can tell you from experience that what happens afterwards will take the most time. Preparing for the happening, preparing for the disaster. That's very good. The disaster won't take that much time, mostly, but afterwards, recovery is taking a long time, and especially if people are without homes, if people suffered severe losses or damage. So I can imagine this is very good also in the resilient part to take this into account. Well, thank you very much, Kimo. I know that you will have to leave this webinar soon, but I hope you will be able to have some kind of discussion or maybe a time to answer questions from our panel, from our participants. And I don't know, Anaïs, if you can see everybody and if you can tell me if there's anybody.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I will let you know if there are any questions in the chat. There are not so far, but I will flag them to you.
Okay. Anybody, this is your chance to ask Kimo about his research or maybe his experience. Yes, Kimo?
Yeah, I can imagine that it is maybe a little bit overwhelming, but I'm happy to, if people want to reach out to take some time and then discuss further. And I hope for Water Europe, and then that's also a message back. I really think if we see the discussions going on, I think recovery we should see as an opportunity to transform our water policies. And I really like to discuss further with you, colleagues from Water Europe, how we can really prepare for a fast and a better recovery, that we build back better, so that we really use it. Because if we should do it only in the prevention way, it will not work. There's a momentum to do it in this way. So maybe I hope I raise some interest on that to discuss further later. Yeah.
Okay. This is just...
There is a question in the chat.
Yes.
From Pippa Scott. Super interesting presentation. Thank you. Could you speak a little more re-knowledge being the driver?
If I understand your question well, what we see is that knowledge institutes in Europe and outside Europe have very strong ties and are meet each other in all kinds of projects, in all kinds of platforms. What we observed in the evaluations after 2021, the floods, that governments also have ties, but some are very tight, but some are simply not existing. And we thought that if we can build together with these knowledge institutes and we work together on knowledge development, with the knowledge institutes also having their feet in and their relations with their own local and regional and national government, yeah, we could bring these people together in a more, also in a very tranquil environment, in a safe environment, that it is not directly political. If there's a problem that you say, oh, yeah, we have to speak each. So we are trying to really, with objective knowledge, we try to bring in the ideas, and we see that it is working. People say, wow. And certainly on the local and regional level, we try to be an access point towards these scientific research, but really the applied research institutes. And we see, more and more, it is almost, it is very, it is my program, but I think it's very successful if I see how many people are already in our community and working on this. And again, I think, so knowledge is really kind of way, I think, a way to better and more deeper cooperate and go towards the future and prepare together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're talking about linking together, connecting in a way which is without political pressure.
Exactly.
Which makes it possible to combine all kinds of expertise and knowledge in a safe environment. This is what I hear you say.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Ima, thank you, Pipa, for your question. Well, if there's are no other questions for Kimo, but he invited you, everybody, to reach out and find him, and he works in Deltares. And I don't know if we are able, but I think we are able, Anis, to give all the participants the connecting email addresses and so on.
Yes, of course, and also the presentations.
And also the presentations.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and Kimo already placed his email address in the chat as well.
There's another question.
Yes.
That arrived just now from Christian. Thank you very much to both. We have seen in the past that cities with renatured streams have been spared during flooding events. At the same time, a lot of adaptation is missing upstream. Do you have specific insights on the most efficient nature-based solutions regarding cost, time, and mitigation capacity?
The multi-million-dollar question.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
I think the most efficient. I think this is. I need more time to comprehend and to discuss this. But what I can tell is that we are focusing also on nature-based solutions. But we are also developing models to see what is their efficiency, and we see a lot of positive signals when we consider what we can call very extreme floods, but what we can still comprehend. But if we talk about Valencia, where there's 700 millimeter in a couple of hours, when we look at the Gul or the A-Valley basically is one big nature-based solution, but it happened. We had there were some cities which were also in that nature-based solution, which were completely washed away. So what I wanted to say is that yes, nature-based solutions are very efficient in certain circumstances for drought and risk management. If we go to the real extremes, it should always be in combination with prevention, with protection, with other types of and certainly early warning and emergency response. So I think, but I'm happy to follow up on this question and also redirect you to our website to have a look into it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kimo. And I think it's also one of the goals of this meeting in learning from each other and trying to combine knowledge, experience, and so on in this white paper and trying to find best solutions. And the best solution will be a different one probably for each situation, but we will find common goals to achieve. So Kimo, thank you very much for your presentation and your time for being here with us. I would very much want to give a warm welcome to Frank Annor from the African Water Corridor and the TU in Delft, the Technical University. Frank has a background in water management and has worked with experts worldwide to manage water in many different contexts. His work focuses on integrated water resource management, hydrology, GIS, and remote sensing. And he has extensive experience in the Water River Basin. Well, Frank, welcome in this webinar, and I would very much like to give the floor to you.
Thanks a lot, Lisette and Andrea, for the invitation. And I'm making this presentation with my colleague also at TU Delft, who is on the call. So it's really a pleasure for us to present some of the things we are doing. Like you heard from Kimo, we work a lot also in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in America. But in this presentation, I'll focus more on what we are doing in terms of water innovation platforms, sensors, models, tools that we use for river basin management to support climate resilient basins or development. So that is what my presentation will be about. I would talk more about monitoring systems. Why? Because, we cannot manage what we cannot measure. To be able to manage things, you need to be able to measure things and understand. And if you cannot do this well, then it's very difficult for us to manage. So at TU Delft, we also really focus a lot on monitoring systems. Also looking at reservoir management in basins, because they play a lot of roles in terms of, for example, for agriculture, for hydropower, but also for flood attenuation. So I also give a bit of insights on that. And then Kimo talked about flood early warning systems. So I also say a little bit about that. And then water, energy, food nexus, really looking at infrastructure development and not looking at it from the lens of just one sector, but looking at it from how we can really integrate sectors and have infrastructure that actually optimizes the resources that are available within basins and to yield maximum returns for the basins. And then I'll conclude with a few basins that we are working in and to see if people are interested also to collaborate with us to work in these basins. So let's start with the monitoring systems. So we start with hydrological stations, meteorological stations, because really both water in the atmosphere and water on the ground are really key for us to manage the basin. And if we don't know this, then it's really a challenge. And at TU Delft, we came up with a spin-off company called TAMO. And TAMO now has set up over 700 stations across 23 countries in Africa, covering a number of river basins. That helps us to really monitor these basins. And of course, we also rely very much on new sensors we are developing, some GNSS satellite data, as well as UAV data to really support these processes. This is an example of really understanding evaporation losses, because in the water basin where this was done, there was the perception that evaporation was really taking up a lot of the water balance. And because of that, people were struggling to have water all year round. So we did a study to understand the component of evaporation in small reservoirs using the covariance systems and remote sensing. And we realized that this was really not the case. So then the policies and focus had to change to really help people to understand how to manage these basins better. And of course, first one was trying to map all these reservoirs. So this is, you are looking at the northern part of Ghana and then Burkina Faso, where a number of these reservoirs exist. And we have a basin shared by 6 countries. And of course, most of the basin is shared by Ghana and Burkina Faso. And of course, Burkina Faso is upstream and most of the agricultural activities are being done there. And Ghana has a big hydropower system, which is more downstream. So if you use the water upstream and you don't allow it to come downstream, then of course it impacts on hydropower production. So how can we really optimize this within the basin? So these were some of the things that we were looking at. And of course, The reservoirs that we have are also being used for multi-purposes. So for agriculture, for fishing, for recreational purposes. So you really need to make sure that you have a good balance and satisfy all these demands within the basin. Some of them are competing, some of them are less competing, depending on where they are within the river basin. And also we got understanding that there were a lot of siltation going on. So we found ways to do bathymetric analysis and be able to scale this easily for people to understand how siltation was affecting water availability within the basin. This was also very important because there are a lot of mining activities upstream. So people are digging for gold, and as a result, there's a lot of pollution and there's a lot of siltation happening, and we need to monitor this over time to understand how to do this. Some of the other sensors we have done is to monitor really large dams, which if they're not well monitored, then the breach has a lot of consequences for downstream dwellers. And here we use, for example, GNSS to be able to look at water levels, but also look at deformation. So how is the deformation happening in the dams in real time so people can take action within a very short time. And for the first time, we have GNSS operational water level monitoring, which is really something that is new that we are doing that helps. But also, like I said, with bathymetry and sediment monitoring, we try to make sure that people can do this locally with very easy to use equipment. So we developed simple methodologies and made them available for countries within the basin and scientists to be able to do this. For example, updating rating curves to understand volumes of water or discharges, and also to understand how their volumes are filling for hydropower generation. So these are also some of the things we're doing, for example, for Bui and in Ghana, and also for Luzemfa hydropower in Zambia. Now I talk a bit about the water balance. Well, this is a bit technical, but basically what I want to say is that you really need to have good measurements to understand your water availability. And once you understand your water availability, you can now look at allocation of these water resources to really optimize the use of resources and the benefits of people in the river basin. So that's really what I wanted to say. So don't worry too much about the equations. These are some of the measurements that we did to look at evaporation, also looking at various methods that are used to quantify evaporation. Of course, everybody would like to use the FAO method because it's very simple with less data, but then often you don't have stations that are close by for you to use that. And then you use stations that are very far away, and that affects how much evaporation you're computing. And this is just to show that if you don't really manage your dams properly, it has really dire consequences. So in river basin management, dam operations is really critical. For example, in 2023, where we had issues with dam spillage in Akosombo in Ghana, it affected a lot of people. And of course, if we had much more insights, probably we could have reduced the impacts that we had. Also in the Mara, in Kenya, and also in Zoe, we also work in other countries, but just this example where we look at flood early warning systems, setting up systems, but also really warning people, very rural areas. You see that people are still trying to cross rivers when it's flooding, and that is really a danger. Just 4 weeks ago, we lost a woman and her son trying to cross a river in Kenya, and it's as a result of people lacking really early warning systems and have information on what to do during these periods. So we think that also really enhancing this in the basins helps a lot. And within a project called Tembo Africa, we are doing this, really get information through the Met services to people in various platforms, using mobile platforms like WhatsApp, but also SMS and also other media to educate people. Similarly, we did also flood early warning systems in Tanzania. Here also Delta Race flood tax were involved with Red Cross, and basically developed a platform to help manage floods in the Simbazi Basin, which is in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. Now I talk about EPIC Africa, where we look at water, energy, food nexus. And basically what we try to do is to look at an integrated way of managing water and energy, to understand the interaction, and also to make sure that we are able to have long-term planning and be able to utilize infrastructure in a much more meaningful way. So there we look at various scenarios on how we can manage water infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and then agricultural infrastructure for food, and to see how that could be done in a way that can enhance, for example, opportunities for people to harness the resources in the basin, while looking at global drivers and market drivers like climate change and stuff. And there you also want people to understand how their views can be heard. So we set up what we call a transition space, where we brought in visionaries, that is citizens, to share their views on how they see their basins in the near future. And basically, we, together with them, model these future basins and to see what is required to get them to that future that they desire, and sacrifices and probably cost also that they have to incur in doing so. So there we are doing it in the Tana Basin, in Kenya, but also in the Volta Basin across West Africa. What we have also developed again is what we call an LLM. So there's large language models to be able to compare policies, because we also realized that there were a lot of non-coherency in policies. So an agricultural policy says we should do this without really paying due diligence to what water policy is also looking at. So we developed this tool to see how policies in those sectors align or misalign, and what we can do to really ensure that there's coherence within them, and then bring them together in terms of the people that manage this. And then, of course, in energy, we're also looking at energy now, but also energy in terms of climate change, where people are talking about nuclear energy, looking at clean energy, and trying to see how much really can we do in the basins in terms of harnessing these energies, and what will their implications be across various sectors. So really inventorizing resources, looking at needs, and then trying to see how we can distribute this in a way to enhance the visions that were shared in what we call the transition space. We've also have tools. For example, we talk about watersheds, but in Save for All, we have developed tools for food sheds. So basically looking at within the basin, who can produce what food and who needs what food, and what is really driving migration within the basin in terms of people looking for food or water, and what factors are driving this, so that we'll be able to also see how to meet these needs. In the end, I would just say that TU Delft, really, I can talk for a very long time. We do a number of things, but these are just a few highlights of what we are doing, and also sharing the basins that we are working in Africa, now Basin, Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, Lake Chad Basin, Volta, Limpopo. So if people are interested, please feel free to contact Hughes or myself, and we are able to work with you on this. Of course, we have a lot of people that we are working with already, because collaboration is very key in river basin management. So we also work with a lot of people to support this process. I think I would like to end here, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Frank. This was really a flood of words and a lot of knowledge, experience that you produced to us. I learned several things about the monitoring systems that you talked about. You do it on hydrology, and evaporation and so on, but also is it the same monitoring instruments that you use on quality measurements?
So that's a very good question. So we do some water quality measurements, but often those are based on lab analysis. We also do some remote sensing quality measurement, but this we look at turbidity, where we try to see how rivers are getting polluted as a result of the mining upstream. So at the moment, we don't have a lot of in situ, let's say, sensors that are really monitoring water quality real time in most of the basins we're working.
Yeah, I recognize a lot of things you say, because the Netherlands is also at a very low end of the river. We are at the seaside, actually. So whatever is used upstream is not anymore. It's not most of the time. You still find downstream. I had a very interesting meeting with Liam Poa, who wrote a book about drinkable rivers. And she went upstream and she said, why can we drink the water of the river at the source? And why can't we drink it anymore at the sea? So she has really found a challenge to talk to people and bringing them together with a beautiful and nice spirit. So what I also learned from you is the combination of the use of water for energy, for water drinking purposes, and for food the purposes. I think this is also very challenging. I would like the audience to keep their questions for after our next presentation, which is Jeremy Fair, and you will stay with us, Frank, for later on. So we have the questions at the end. Jeremy Fair is also one of the speakers this afternoon. He's from Blue Water Intelligence. Jeremy will talk to us about digitalization in water-scarce river basins. A challenge we are very likely to have more frequently in the future. Blue Water Intelligence brings a case from Nepal to the webinar. So Jeremy, you still should put it in slideshow because we see now.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, better?
This is okay. Thank you. The floor is yours, Jeremy.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lucette, and thank you, Andrea and Anaïs, for the kind invitation, and obviously to you, Lucette. I was indeed, I agree with you, Lucette, absolutely impressed with Frank's presentation. So many things. So my presentation will be, if I may, more modest, because we are a small company based out of France. And we do actually two things that I'm going to present, including a case study from Asia, because we had Africa, so we're going to have Asia together, and that is Nepal, as Lucette said. So what we do at BWI is called river basin digitization. We have not invented it. It has been mentioned in Kimo's presentation. It has been mentioned by Frank, and during this digital era, it's obviously very normal to try to complement existing infrastructure with digital services. So this is what we are going to delve into with what we do at BWI, which is about river flow forecasting. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the stakes, because I think if you have joined this webinar, we know about the stakes, obviously, that are exacerbated by global warming. Well, basically, we have a growing population. We have reserves of water that are more and more uncertain. And we need to irrigate more, because we need to feed all these newborns and people. And there is a problem, because obviously there are water resource conflicts. I'm not spending more time on it. I know we all agree on the facts. So, and this webinar is about the solutions, because this is what the future white paper is about. So what is river basin digitization? So we have chosen to go with, delving on Lucette's latest question to Frank. We are not about water quality, we look at water quantity, and we have chosen river flow or river discharge as the key indicator that we want to try and forecast. So when we started the company 4 years ago, we realized there were people who were manufacturing ground sensors. So they do measurement, they are not looking at the future. And there were engineering companies who were designing bespoke, so basin bespoke models to actually forecast the behavior of the basin, but it takes about maybe 2 years to design a good model. And then it's complicated to maintain operational when the consulting engagement is over, for many reasons. So we try to have this very operational service, and it takes the form of virtual station. So basically a virtual station is a point. You basically access a website, you put a point on a river, and it starts deriving data and forecasts. So this is what we do at BWI. So we are complementary to ground sensors, because we are not about measurement, we are about forecasting, and we will bring a river flow for the next 10 days on top of measurements that may come from the client's ground sensors. But we can also provide data on ungauged basins, so basins where there is no ground sensing. So how do we do that? Basically, we use different data sources that have been mentioned by, actually, I think we all use the same data by Frank and by Kimo. So we look at weather data, because obviously from the weather forecast, we look at each precipitation, how it flows down to the river, on the slopes. and we look at land to understand how much land will absorb each drop of water. Or, for example, if it's a highway, then the runoff coefficient is probably 1 because it's going to flow over concrete. Or if it's a thirsty corn field not yet harvested, then probably the runoff coefficient will be close to 0. So we try to look at that, including soil moisture indicators, etc. And looking at how much precipitation flows down into the river, then we are able to say that the river discharge is increasing or decreasing. Obviously, there are other factors like usages, like evapotranspiration, evaporation, etc., etc. Okay, so and then it's a very classic process. We run the models, and we have. I mean, one of our innovations is that the model remains calibrated, so self-calibrated with an AI. So basically, it's an LSTM. A neural network that maintains the parameters calibrated. So that's what makes the model operational. And just one slide on the company. So we are 40 people out of Toulouse and Paris, France. We operate globally. We work in Africa. So, for example, in Senegal and in Uganda. We work in Asia in several countries, including India, Nepal, Bangladesh. We've started operating in Belgium. We also work in Panama. So we're small, but working abroad too. Okay, so now moving on to the case study. So I chose Nepal to be complementary to Africa, so to Frank's presentation. So the use case that was presented to us by our client NES, so Nepal Electricity Authority, so they are the government state electricity company, was that Nepal had to unleash its hydropower generation potential. And hydropower, as you know, is about water, especially in a country with habits of producing runoff river hydropower, meaning that the flow that you get, you produce energy from it, as compared to large dams where you basically decide to turbine to produce energy whenever you need it. In Nepal, you get the water and either you use it to produce electricity or you don't. And well, they prefer to produce when they get that chance. So the project was funded partly by the French government. And we have a number of partners, so local, including a university, so Tribhuvan University, that has been helping us with snow melting patterns. And a group of industry who is providing complementary services, including ground sensors. So we have deployed ground sensors as part of the project to actually validate the quality of our river flow forecasts. So there are a number of basins concerned by this project. I'm not going to enter into too much details, but obviously it's a complex basin because we are in high mountains and we don't have many. So for example, our high mountains in France, the Alps, are half as high as what they have in Nepal. So we had never experienced such a context, and it was obviously technically challenging. So then we went in a very traditional research process from data acquisition to delivering the service. Now we are at operational stage, so meaning the client uses the services. So there has been, as for any project, many capacity building meetings, both in Nepal and in France. We use a number of data sources that I have listed here, but I think it is interesting to benchmark each other and to share. So some were client furbished, for example, NEA provided their river network, and some other data sources we take from the open data produced by the Copernicus program or by FAO. I mean, these are all data sources that you know. Then we trained the model, so we had different results. In some areas, we did a good job. The model is working well. In some other areas, it is more challenging. The results can be mediocre. That's life, and forecasting behind the behavior of rivers is obviously something complicated, as we all know here. So, for example, in the Trishuli Basin, honestly, an NSC of 0.69 is quite mediocre. But we did a good job for Upper Canalie, for Marsiangdi. That's the way it is. And now, so the clients can access the service. So this is how it looks like. They can create their virtual stations. They can decide where to locate their future power plants. It helps get the permits granted or not by the government, and it helps in general accelerate investments made by both the Nepalese government and IFIs, so World Bank, ADB, etc., who want to commit funds to actually develop the infrastructure of the country. And it is very related to rivers. Okay, second thing I wanted to talk about after this example downstream is something upstream. It is a satellite mission that BWI has been developing for now a year. The name of this mission is Revalto, for Revisiting Altimetry Hydrology. And I'm going to take 2-3 minutes to talk about Revalto. So there has been a number of altimetry space missions, but both are mono-satellite missions. And we want to build a constellation with 10 satellites, which will provide a 1-day revisit for 20,000 points globally. And we're starting with 2 satellites, which are to be launched in mid-2028. And these 2 satellites will provide 48-hour revisit, so 2-day revisit for 13,000 points globally. So why do we want that mission? So we realized, so there are wonderful, amazing, beautiful sensors up there, for example, SWOT, that is amazing. But if you look at this very example, so coming from a research lab called Legos in Toulouse, so they looked at how JSON-3, so a satellite by EUMETSAT, caught the flood in Benin in 2016. And basically, if you look at this, basically it didn't catch the waters come up and down. And with Revalto, we will catch it going up and down, and the red dots are the revisit points. So what matters to make space altimetry operational is now to have revisit, and this is what we are about with Revalto. So I mentioned the concept. It's going to be complementary to satellites like SWOT, because obviously our spatial resolution is going to be very low because we are a nadir altimeter, not a large swath altimeter, but our temporal resolution will be much higher. So it's the perfect complement to existing missions. So this is a simulation of the future 20,000 plus virtual stations for constellation of 10 satellites. So we are basically going to cover the world. There is no discrimination against the Sahara because there is just no river or lake there. So don't worry about that. But every river or lake that we may cover, we cover it. And the use cases are very obvious, and such sensors will be very useful to transboundary context, because obviously it happens a lot that the neighbor doesn't want to share the data. So this is where Revalto is going to be useful. As Frank mentioned, water levels are key to bettering science and understanding the water cycle. So I mean, we all agree again on that, and we have not done that alone. We have a whole value chain that is working with us on developing such a system. And the service delivery model is going to be again very classic. So it's going to be online through an API or via UI, and the data will be commercialized. It will be free though for public research. So public research labs can come to us and we can sign specific MOUs, and we will share the data for free because we want to contribute to science as much as science has contributed to making of this mission a success. And with this, I would like to end. So thank you for your time and for your attention. And I'm happy again to be with you and to answer any questions there may be.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeremy. Also, this was like a flood of words because we gave you not too much time to have the presentation, but you send a lot of information, and you can see with data we take next steps in predicting, but also in sharing better the water that we have. It was very interesting to see your 10 satellites and covering the world like a sort of kind of Starlink opportunity. I saw that not only the Sahara and parts of Australia, but you also didn't cover Greenland, and I know there's a lot of interest in Greenland. so I think it's really worthwhile getting into more of this water intelligence knowledge, and I for sure am using a lot more data and combining data than we did like 10 years ago, and I think in 5 to 10 years it will be much broader than what you already showed us. So for all the people participating at this moment, I promised to open the floor for any questions for Jeremy and Frank. And I think we take like 5 minutes because we also have how do I say this? We also have the Mentimeter still ongoing, and we also have time for discussion. But we can also do a discussion on the questions. Are there questions? I would like the participants to plot these questions in the chat. And Anaïs will be my host in seeing if there's any questions. And otherwise, I would like proactive to ask Jan van Steen to give some short overview, some short comments on what we learned.
Yes, thanks, Lucette. So, Andrea, maybe a question from you.
Yes, I have a question for Jeremy. How do you see, the financial sustainability of this kind of actions? In a territory like Nepal. By chance, I've been working there for a number of years, so I know, how much complex could be working on predicting climate events and even the normal flows of water during the raining season. So my question is, how do you see the financial sustainability? That could be, the main player could be the government, or could be private capitals, or could be other kind of form of financing and investment.
Thank you, Andrea, for your question. Very interesting. So obviously the economic and context in Nepal is challenging. It's a developing country, but I would say that even more challenging than the financial viability of any service there is because we are talking of an energy topic, it's the political stability and energy deals that may occur or not between Nepal, India, and Bangladesh. Because basically, Nepal, the bet we have made is that it is the water tower of South Asia. Basically, whenever there is a need for water, this is where it should be derived from. So for us, the issue, the current issue that prevents financial viability to be there is the lack of grids between Nepal and their neighbors, so Bangladesh and India. So looking at the demographic growth of Bangladesh and India, the faster the grid will be there, the faster it will enable private operators to develop hydropower plants in Nepal. And unfortunately, as a small private player, we don't have much leverage to help the discussions occur between India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. But we hope that they are actually talking, and it is going to come. So this is how I can answer your question, Andrea. Thank you very much for asking it.
My pleasure. Also, because I remember that at the time of the dam built in Kalikandaki, the main challenge was, the relationship between the two countries with India, because on the ownership of water. So this is another big issue that, when it goes into river basin, in particular where, in the regions there is competition on water, that becomes, extremely important.
The competition, and actually, as you can say, it is a bad word, but war on water is already existing. Who owns the water? I think this is a very big question, and maybe something that we should address as well in the resilient river smart basins. So I think this is a topic that we face everywhere where there is water connecting countries. There is the discussion about who owns it, who gets first, who gets the best quality, and so on. So this is a very interesting topic for maybe a discussion later on. I saw no other questions, so if you permit me, I would like to ask the participants for the Mentimeter start, and I don't know, or Jan or Anaïs, who is going to help us.
Yeah, I will share the screen with the Mentimeter.
Thank you, Anaïs.
I will just have to ask Jeremy if you can
stop sharing.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so maybe we can wait some like around 30 seconds or 1 minute for participants to connect.
Is anybody having trouble participating in the Mentimeter? Please.
Just waiting for the presenter.
Yes. That's.
I cannot see the chat while I share my screen, so maybe Andrea, if you can let me know if there are any issues or questions in the chat, because I don't have access to it anymore.
I don't see anything in the chat. I mean,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we need to start with the Mentimeter.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Are there any examples of river-smart basin management that you have? I hear a lot of people talking. Thank you. Actually, we presented an open question, so and you have 200 characters to fill in, so it might take some time, but just a small.
Maybe Lisette, if
Yes.
I may add. So one of the things I sent was the water storage cross borders. So I think one of the interesting things that Kimo is doing with his research is that he's really looking from a river basin perspective, and that allows you to see at which location water storage, for example, for flood control or for drought management is the most effective. And I think as a researcher, it's really possible to look across borders more easily than, for example, for people like you who are in government. So I think that is a great example of smart river basin management. And Kimo also told us that he is able, because of his research, he's able to be more loose in those kinds of things. And it's not political at the moment that he researches it, and it only becomes political later. So it's kind of an element that you can take away from the equation and just look at what is the best solution in the river basin.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it's even more difficult making agreements on a national scale, because our national governments are not meeting each other every week. Though I learned also from the Water Authority in Limburg, the very southern part of the Netherlands, that they have like agreements or talks about this water storage on the Belgium side, which are actually paid for paid partially by the Limburg Water Authority. So it does help sometimes to put it on a scale of connecting regions, connecting communities. So are there any more examples that you can give us for us to even give this more of a highlight in our white paper that we are going to produce? So you are invited. So we have 6 responses of the 18, and it can also be that you're just listening in order to get more information and you don't have the experience yet. But you feel free, if it's not on the opportunity of this Mentimeter, feel free to give it to, or in the chat, or bring it on any other moment to Jan. And Jan will also post his email address in the chat. Shall we go to the next slide, Anais?
Sure.
Which is also a principal question, because what do you see as the main barriers in the cooperation in transboundary river basins? Is it legal? Is it financial? Is it institutional or cultural? What do the participants in this meeting experience? I think this is even a more difficult question. I invite it doesn't have to be what your experience, but maybe it's your expectation. Trust is a very important one. Thank you. Lack of transparency is also, thank you. Even more answers are allowed. I'll wait just like 15 more seconds. Thank you for the responders. Very interesting answers. You can see that it goes on. Yeah, wars, of course. This is very, with all the geopolitical tension, this is very noble. I was in Romania only 2 weeks ago, and you can see that the Donau, but also other rivers, are sometimes even the border of the countries. So working together sometimes is half the river you own and half the river you don't own. So, but if there's flooding, then you both have the same trouble. So thank you, our participants. We go on to the next slide. Which is more like from the participants. Maybe you are government, maybe you're not, but which governance gap must urgently needs to be addressed to accelerate water-smart river basin management? Which gap? Why is it so difficult to work together? Where is the governance gap? Maybe some of our panel members, Jeremy or Frank or Guus, would you like to comment? Jeremy.
Sure. Thank you, Lucette. So what is interesting is there are maybe 3 categories here of answers. One category could be something around the lack of financial means or the lack of money. Like we can see there are mostly at the top issues about financing. So the two rectangles on the right side of the top of the screen. Then there is another category which is about actually. So someone summed it up by talking the walk and walking the talk, meaning doing what you are saying you are going to do. And there is a third category around planning, and especially planning around climate change. So someone summed it up with trust science. So that is interesting because obviously you cannot plan if you don't believe in the diagnosis. So I mean, to me, these are the 3 governance gaps that the participants have highlighted.
Yeah, this is also very. Yeah, I agree a lot with you that trust in science seems to be like I also have an opinion. So this is very good. That's why data is also very good in convincing people that science is really very necessary in order to make good decisions. Thank you, participants. I think we can go on to the next slide. What type of data or knowledge is currently missing to support better river basins decisions? And you cannot use the answer that Jeremy just produced us. But it is okay, Jeremy, we get your presentation as well.
Yeah, that was me.
Yes, thank you. Maybe Frank, can you comment on this question?
Yeah, so I think one of the issues is really what Jeremy, we have talked about forecast, but here forecast, we're looking at both meteorological, hydrological forecast, but also historical really data, hydrological and meteorological, to understand past trends and to understand how better to sort of project changes with regards to climate, because people now really don't trust the science, and that also refers to the previous question that we answered, because we have not shown much evidence. And I gave an example that if we cannot really measure, we cannot really plan. So we really need to show people with vivid examples of what is happening for them to understand. There's a lot of socioeconomic data, but often they are also very scattered. And so the institutions are also not really talking to each other or working to each other. So you have really data that are scattered, and sometimes you need to bring all this together to make meaningful analysis. So I think these are some of the challenges that we're having in river basin management.
Thank you for this. Actually, it's logic, but it's like not, is this the right data, but can we collect data in the first place? So this is, thank you for your sharp conclusion on this, Frank. So thank you for the responses on this topic. Feel free to add anything more. I will leave it open, but I will also conclude. We're going to the end of this webinar. I think we had very beautiful keynotes. Thank you for our speakers, Frank, Jeremy, but also Kimo, for presenting us with these examples. We didn't actually get a good discussion, but there were some interesting questions for people to get more into the depth of the topics that you put on the floor. So thank you very much. This is really very valuable, and your experiences will bring us a little step further into combining or regarding our river basin management. I think this was also a good opportunity for all of you to share your challenges, your solutions, and your experiences. And as I mentioned before, we will use the input from the discussion and also from the participants, from our speakers, for drafting a white paper about water-smart and resilient river basins, as to create a clearer position in the light of the developments like the water resilience strategy and the upcoming climate adaptation package, which will be floored in the EU Commissions. This paper will be created in the coming months and then finalized. So if you have any more interesting experiences, if you have any more knowledge that you would like to share, feel free to share it with Jan. Jan, did you already post your email address in the chat? And otherwise,
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You did. Thank you very much. Maybe Andrea, would you like, from the Water Europe position, would you like to say or to add something that I forgot to say, or that?
Well,
Thank you.
I think, thank you so much, Suzette. I mean, and thank you so much for all the speakers. I think it has been said all this afternoon, even though we had, I mean, such a short time, but we really touched, I mean, the real challenges, but we also touched, I mean, the real solutions at the same time. So it's, I mean, this is a demonstration and things can be done. I think that there are two important areas where we should work, and we should also hurry up, because I mean, water is not waiting for us, and climate change is really running, and climate change runs as well natural as much as we can run, so much more than we can run. And I think that for sure we need to develop better governance instruments that can help in working in the transboundary cooperation and collaboration in a better way. This also includes, I mean, the capacity of the river basins and to collaborate also on the investment area, because it's important to invest in a proper way and in coordination. And then the other thing is more technological, even though there's an approach, we need to work more on the digitalization. I mean, we have been working recently with the European Space Agency, and you're seeing that there are a lot of opportunities coming from Earth observation, and that combination of Earth observation data, in situ data, to build, I mean, the real landscape, and for using, I mean, what you already know can be used like digital twins and other instruments of monitoring and predicting, I mean, what may happen in a river basin, I mean, under different conditions, is something that it is at hand. We need to invest. We need to increase the collaboration between the different actors. That's the reason for which we work on Water and Living Labs, in order to support the collaboration between the different actors on the same territories, which are facing the same challenges in the water sector. So this is, I mean, what we think. Of course, I mean, we are all working to achieve a water-smart society and economy, because it's not only the society, but it's also, I mean, this is the financial sustainability of societies and the management of such a precious resource as much as water. So many thanks to all.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, participants, for joining us at this webinar. Feel free, if you have any more knowledge or experience, or maybe you have context that you want to be addressed by Jan, please feel free to send your information to the email address, which Jan, I think, pointed out several times now in the chat. So I would like to thank everybody for their attention. I would like to thank our speakers for their cooperation and their their experiences. And I would like also to thank Anaïs and Jan for moderating this webinar. I wish you all a very nice afternoon, and thank you very much for this participation.
Thank
Thank you very much. Bye.
Much.